Secret friends, unite!
Welcome to the Secret Friends Unite podcast, episode 425. This is your guide to the geek side, and I am one of your hosts, Todd Oxtra. I'm a bachelor this weekend, so I've been having a lot of fun. My son's been doing his things.
Hey, are you eating out of the bag that says Bachelor Chow, like a fry?
Yes, I am. Yeah, like
exactly. Cat food.
It's microwavable meals. No. Actually, it's been because my son is 17. He's kind of doing his own thing, and my wife was at a writer's retreat. So essentially, I was on my own. So I'm like, I'm going to go see a movie on Friday. I'm going to have lunch with a friend. And today, I could be lazy and do nothing. But I'm probably going to do laundry.
And hopefully it didn't turn out to be like Risky Business, because we watched that movie recently, and he was left on his own and turned his house into a brothel. So
no drugs or prostitutes, Charlie. Sorry. But yeah, that's my host. That's my co-host, Charlie Carden. He is here as well.
Yes, that is an accurate statement. I, too, am here. Quick showcase, and I finally framed this, but haven't hung it on the wall, where you usually see the Captain America shield in my background. I have in front of it a print I had signed by West Michigan artist Scott Rosema a few years back, and he's awesome. You probably know his name from all the majors, Marvel and DC, but I see him at every show we do, and this is one of those. I bought a 2-pack of a frame. I framed a Indiana Jones print that was drawn by Jim Steranko, who was a guest at the show we did last month. I didn't get him to sign it. I didn't fork out the extra $50, but because it was a 2-pack of 11 by 14 frames, I decided to finally frame this. So props to Scott Rosema, who lives right here in West Michigan. That's all, but I'm good. Having fun. Just got back from a week in halfway sunny Indianapolis for a work trip. We do an annual meeting where I get to see all my coworkers, which is cool because I don't have everyday coworkers because I work alone from home, and all my coworkers are in other states. So we had a rocking good time. No, it was good, but it's nice to be home and ready to dig back into work and into talking about stuff like our amazing Patreons. Did you like that segue? Woohoo!
Very good, Charlie.
Yes, indeed. Yes, our Patreons are what makes it possible for us to keep the lights on, as it were, and make all that fun bonus content that you see over at patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. I am talking about your friend and mine, Jamie Prinky, on the Best Buds level, and the Nias family, Sean, Stella, and Henry, my dear friend, Missy Merchant, and her dear friend, Andy Milliken. We are grateful for your support. And again, if you'd like to learn more about the additional great content and perks and bonuses for our Secret Friends Unite Patreon, pop on over to, as I said, patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite and find out all about it. Now, Todd, this cover... Now, what made you choose this cover?
Charlie, one point of business before we move forward.
Point of order.
Just let everyone know if we didn't, I don't know if we failed to mention it last week, but just let you know that we were guests on Corey Derrick Hugginson's podcast. It was the first for Patreon where they talked to creators, and he had yourself, Mike, Mark, and myself. Yes, Mike, on to talk about Secret Friends Unite. So if you get a chance, follow Boss Rush and all of their content, and then you can check out our interview where we were on, and we can provide notes to where you can watch that after. But it was great to have, to be guests with Corey.
Right. And that was on his Patreon, not ours, because it made it sound like you were saying it was on ours. And people would be so disappointed to not see Corey.
Correct. It was Boss Rush's Patreon, and I believe they released their things later to all members. So it's available now if you want to listen to it. And it was very cool of him to have us on. And Corey's a great guy. So please support Boss Rush.
Yes, indeed. So anyway, back to talking about this cover. Boy, November of 1991. It's particularly relevant for Star Trek. This is a cover of DC's second run of Star Trek: The Next Generation. It's from November of 91, which was right around the time Gene Roddenberry passed away. So very, very difficult time in this kind of family reunion and stuff. This is just this is a real hodgepodge of screen used images stolen from the series. But an interesting deal about this Star Trek comic is that, Star Trek: The Next Generation is what made me an uber Star Trek fan. I did not follow this title. I followed its sister title, Star Trek: The Original Series, for lack of a better term, because it was set between Star Treks 5 and 6, and I love those TOS movies. So I never really followed this. Plus, it kind of started, when I did dip in and read one of those, it kind of started my loathing of like, why are they telling stories about stuff that they're sticking it in between episodes? And, it's like what we don't like about the Star Wars comics. And then when I kind of grouse about some of the current comics that the Star Treks do. But yeah, they kind of ripped off some images. So you got Worf in the background, basically the dominant image. To his side, you have his foster parents and his blood son, Jeremy, who was the same kid who was the bad kid in RoboCop 2. You remember?
Oh, the based on the Pearl Jam song.
Yes, exactly. Jeremy Bogan. And it came out right around the same time. And below that, you see the late Jon Stewart as the first actor that played Worf's son, Alexander. And then you see, Todd, I bet this is why you picked this.
This is why I picked the damn cover, Charlie, because I'm like, why is Dash Rendar on the cover of Star Trek?
So Okana is a character that we got in season 2 of TNG. He was played by William O. Campbell, the Rocketeer. He was also the guy who was second in the running to be William Riker in the series. The character has returned for a brief cameo in Lower Decks and a short recurring role in Star Trek Prodigy. But he didn't quite look like this. In that first appearance, which was in 1988-89, in, like I said, in TNG, he seduced Terry Hatcher, which was awesome in the cameo that she had. I know Todd's like, what, really? And he did have a magnificent mullet, but it was not to the Dash Rendar / Billy Ray Cyrus early 90s vibe. And that shirt, that shirt looks like it's kind of, it looks like balloon animals, like somebody wrapped balloon. It just doesn't, it doesn't even look
this
like
is like every Star Wars character ever that you're like the guy who you have that you hire to do something, but he's not exactly the guy you want. Yeah. But he's the only guy that's available.
Exactly. And then it looks like the Enterprise in the bottom is basically flying into either a hole in the paper or a sun. So I will tell you. Oh, and then you do see in the lower left-hand corner in the box, it was Star Trek's 25th anniversary in 1991. So the only original piece of inspired art was Billy Ray Cyrus / Dash Rendar, as you said, the Kmart. Yeah. Han Solo, as our friend John would call him, from 1996, Shadows of the Empire, which we talk about all the time.
Yeah. And it was funny, Charlie, when I looked at this and I'm like, okay, I don't know much about the series. So I did like a little Wikipedia, and I think I found like maybe StarTrekComics.com or whatever it was. Yeah, and they went through this, and Michael Jan Friedman like wrote almost the whole series. Yeah, exactly. It was crazy,
and it ran from.
It was just crazy. One guy doing that type of work on a licensed property is kind of unique, and that meant he kind of got to create the tone, kind of create his own version of those characters. Which give him props.
Trying to pluck it out of my memory. I think it started during season 2 of TNG, so maybe in 88, 89, and ran till maybe 96 or 97, so a full 3 or 4 years after the series ended, and through Star Trek Generations. And so they kind of had to do a Return of the Jedi where they took after the end of the series and before Generations and really stretched it out so they could still be on the Enterprise D and before everybody got split up because of the events of that movie. So it was a lot of like, and it was a lot of like, kind of spin-offs or part 2s of like, we brought back this character from this one episode who blah blah, and then here's a comic about it because it's coming out every month, right? So it's one of those that those are all out of print because the license was lost and IDW didn't pick it up, and there may be an episode here or an issue here or there that got tossed into a trade that IDW chose to reprint. But I have on a CD-ROM, I've told you this before, and I was talking with this one of the people in our chapter, every Star Trek comic from 1966 to 2001 on PDF pages. Like you open them up, and so I literally do own every issue of this series, but I would have to
I'm glad you didn't print them, Charlie.
Yeah, I'd have to read it like there's no convenient way to read them. So anyway, but somebody who's a very big fan of CD-ROMs and 8-track tapes and old-timey photographs.
And your uncle.
And my uncle. Yes, my uncle what? What about my uncle? You're saying
I think he dated her, maybe.
Oh, it's entirely possible. In the swinging 60s, my Uncle Tim was quite a hippie. We're, of course, talking about Madam Webb. She's our chief news correspondent at 123, almost and a half years young. She's down at the corner of Hollywood and Vine, waiting for us with the hottest scoops, hopefully not a shot of poop. It's time to go and get some news. Let's go.
Now it's time for Madam Webb's Rumors and News. Take it away, boys.
Thank you very much, Madam Webb, for bringing us all the news this week. And we are really worried about you because you're showing solidarity with the writers who are on strike this week. You were a writer. I believe your greatest accomplishment is you wrote season 3, episode 1 of Benny Hill called Chasin' Chickens. That was your episode. That's your only credit, but you still are getting residuals. So you're in league with these writers because you want them to get paid better. So we salute you, Madam Webb and Benny Hill.
Up with miniskirts. Oh yes. So yeah, that's the big scary news right now is that these poor folks in the Writers Guild of America are on strike. And I didn't, talk about how clueless I was. I was in my hotel room with my little travel Roku plugged in, and Tuesday morning I always like to watch The Daily Show, and I like to watch the first part of Colbert, and then Wednesday rolls around and I'm like, where are my shows? They're gone. That's when the strike started. Yep, these folks are out there trying to make their living because in short, in the changing atmosphere of the streaming world, their residuals are completely being decimated by the fact that they really count on syndication rules and continuing to get a check, and that's a steady part of the way they make their money. And this tends to happen every it said last strike was back in 2007, which lasted 3 months and cost the industry $2 billion. And then the other, really famous strike that comes to mind for me was back in 1988, which impacted a season of Star Trek. So that's how I know about it, because season 2 of Star Trek was about 6 episodes shorter because of that, or 4 episodes shorter. So anything that is scripted, like the late night programs, for example, is shuttered. Saturday Night Live had to shutter their last 2 episodes of the season, though those guests were announced to be, I think, the kid from Succession, who is Kieran Culkin, and drawing a blank on the other one. We're supposed to be the guests. That's something I remember. But I don't know, man. I 1000% think these people deserve anything within reason that they ask for, because when you're taking if residuals are 30% of their income, 40% of their income. And it also really scales down to the fact that the writer rooms are smaller because there are less episodes of something being made. These people have to fight for their rights. So, if I lived in SoCal or New York City, I'd be out there too. I mean, I feel that passionately, being someone who comes from the creative world ourselves, because we create this, though it's clearly not the same thing. We don't have a union, and we just started getting paid, which we're very grateful to our Patreons for. But as artists, you have to fight for your rights. So I'm happy to support them in any way that I can.
Yeah, I was just I had lunch with Shanias yesterday. We were talking about this, and it's really interesting. We were kind of talking about the impact of writers and what they mean. If you don't have writers, you don't have shows, and that's the whole part of this.
Or you get reality TV.
Exactly. Any executive, any director, any showrunner, they can't do anything without these writers. So so if you like anything that's scripted, you like the writers. So right. That's really what it comes down to, because actors can't just make up crap that comes out of their mouth, because that would be horrible. Right. Everybody loves an improver. No, they don't when it's scripted TV.
Not in that regard. No.
Yes. And because of that, since 2007, guess what? A lot of things have changed in the way people make money and the way shows are shown. Mm-hmm. There wasn't streaming in 2007, so there was no way to actually talk about how do you monetize that and how do you pay. So essentially, since 2007, even though the medium and the way you get the media has changed, the writers haven't got that in their contracts. So there's nothing to give them any leverage to say we can do X, Y, or Z, because the language of the contracts don't address it. So because of that, actors are getting paid less. The writer rooms are getting smaller. There's less jobs, and the jobs don't last as long. Right. And the content's all over the place.
Right. It turns into the gig economy, because you look at Netflix, they're like, okay, we had 3 episodes of a 10-episode season and nobody's watching it, so we're going to cancel it. Boom.
I mean, they got paid for that, but they don't necessarily get residuals now.
Right.
They get a one-time payment. Like a lot of actor stuff, they're not getting paid for how many times it shows on Netflix. It's not about that. So the whole structure of payment is completely different too.
Right.
And apparently the writers and the whole organization, they are asking for about, when it comes to everything they're asking about, which is a different way to monetize, different way to get paid, about $450 million, like in total, that would then pay all of the writers that are part of the Writers Guild. And that would basically get them up to a living salary and make money off of the way new media is consumed.
Right. And
I would
I would have to imagine that it is perfectly fair. But again,
it's not much,
not for what I'm sure these people make on, Netflix subscriptions and the different promotional deals and all the things that make it possible for entertainment to be made. It's, does it come right down to a pissing match of, the corporation saying, we want more money and, not paying for the product by which they are conveyed the money that they get. It's just, it's simple business. If you want a product to produce, you have to pay the people that make it. So yeah, you're right. And it's a totally different deal. And I'm sure if we dug deeper, we could find out, what triggered the strike in 2007, and what triggered, the strike back in 2008. It was probably something, similar, something changed drastically. And, maybe back in, syndication rules changed, or syndication, residuals had to change back in 88 or back in 2007.
Well, I think DVD sales, Charlie, probably that was probably like actually media was probably a thing that wasn't addressed in the last, it was really movies and TV and rerun syndication versus, hey, we're actually going to sell these shows on DVD now. And so people can watch these, and then it's another stream of revenue that didn't happen in the back. I mean, maybe you had VHS, but God almighty, like that was not even remotely what DVD sales were like. So one note about what payment. So during all of this, it was revealed that David Zaslav, who is now the CEO of WB Discovery, he made a salary of $250 million. Okay. So do you think he's worth half of what the writers want? Considering he's just a dude making decisions, but he's not actually creating the content. Right. He's making deals.
He's a suit. By the way, how did you get 450 million as being half of 250 million? You just did some math that blew my mind. That's what you just said.
Well, I mean, it's 250 is half of essentially what the writers are asking for.
Yeah, exactly. You said it the other way around though, so you lost me.
So,
but
sorry.
You're exactly correct.
So it all comes down to, in the big picture, there is money to be had and shared.
Shared.
Exactly.
Because it's being made. Yeah, exactly.
It's not communism. We know that, but you have to give people a fair wage, or you don't get great writers. You don't get great content. And we know how that happens. Right. You talked about, like, in 2007, the impact of, what happened, famously Lost had some crappy seasons. Heroes, we know what happened with Heroes, went down the toilet as well. It derailed a lot of things, and they kind of piecemeal seasons together. And it's never good for the industry, because then you lose great content. People stop engaging because there's less there. You don't feel it at first, but you definitely feel it later. And now I don't know if you'll feel as much, because there are so many more ways to get content. Like we said, there's too much. So you don't feel as much versus it was just ABC, CBS, Fox, and maybe CW. So you only had those 4 networks. So we'll see how this goes. But we do know in the short term that Stranger Things is on pause. Blade, the movie that we haven't heard anything about, is on pause.
That's not too difficult.
Loot, the series on Apple TV with Maya Rudolph, is on hold. Staring Alive right now, because that requires writers every week. They can't bank material because it's very timely. Same with late night talk shows. And I've heard also Hacks, that HBO show about the comedians, is also on pause.
I thought that show was over. So I guess I'm not losing out on that. But they're talking about, depending on how long it goes on, these are obviously, this is the flashpoint of things that are being affected currently. But how does this dig deeper into things that are being produced for, late 2024 or 2025, the end of the next Marvel dynasty, so to speak, which we'll talk about in a minute.
There's a few more. I found another link, Charlie. I had actually has a lot more. Abbott Elementary on ABC, Cobra Kai, House of the Dragon on HBO, Night Court, one of your recent favorites, The Penguin coming to HBO Max, Yellow Jackets, Good Omens, series on Amazon Prime. Those are extras. So it's going to be a challenge. And even an award show, MTV Movie Awards, it's actually going to be impacted by this, which is crazy.
Man, oh man. So anyway, in short, to wrap it up, we stand with the writers. We would love to support them. We support creatives everywhere. Your best way to support this is, and we've always had it as a rule, certainly on our social medias, is that, don't think about pirating. Pay for your content. That's the way stuff gets made. That's the way.
Unfortunately, those writers are not going to get paid.
I know, but it does generate revenue. Was my point. Be part of the solution, not the problem.
Pay for your Netflix, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's exactly my point. Or don't, say I got a VPN and I can. It's Todd. The stance that you and I have always taken against pirating, to me, really relates to this. You know what I mean? Pay. You have to pay into the system in order to benefit from the system when it comes to entertainment. So
ensure someone is paying for your content.
Yeah,
is
exactly.
all I will say.
Yeah, exactly. Ensure, yes, someone. But if you feel like having your own, if you're 22 and living on your own, stop stealing your parents' Netflix, because they're going to stop you anyway. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. It's a side issue. But all right, what do we got next? Oh, here's something I'm super excited about. Todd, tell me.
Yes, I'll take this one, Charlie. Yes. So Babylon 5 has been rumored. It's one of my favorite series. It's not a show that I would say holds up well. Totally get it. It's hard to get into now. That's why I believe that Babylon 5, based on its structure, the story it told, is fantastic, and I think really needs a modern day budget. Like I said, if Babylon 5 got the budget that Star Trek did, I think it would be a totally different show, because you could hire better writers, you'd have more expense, but they didn't. So they did the best they could with what they had. So I'll give it that. But Babylon 5,
wait. Are you saying it's a real funky concept?
Yes, that's exactly what I said.
That's good. I like it. I love it.
So the creator of Babylon 5, Michael Straczynski, has been trying to bring back his baby, and he currently has a deal with HBO/CW to do a reboot of Babylon 5. As of right now, the CW is in a hellscape of new ownership, essentially, that most likely will not do this, because they are cutting their budgets. They're essentially out of CW shows now and is going to do something different.
Yeah.
So they're hoping that show will potentially maybe just go to HBO Max or something like that, or another WB network or something. So hopefully that's going to happen. But the big news is that it's just announced that there's going to be an animated movie by J. Michael Straczynski. And I am all for this, because the cool part about this is you don't have to worry about the cast being 185 years old. You can bring back some heritage actors.
Yeah.
They can voice act, and they can do that.
Right.
Some of the actors have died, unfortunately, or in bad health, so they probably can't. But still, some of these could come back. And it's basically Warner Brothers Animation, WB Home Entertainment are going to do it. So that's a good way to basically get it on HBO Max via streaming, and also DVD sales, things like that. So I think this could really work. He says it's the film is already finished and in the can.
Nice.
That's pretty impressive.
Which means they can actually put it out.
Exactly. He says it feels like the most B5-ish thing of anything we've done since the original show, which I would say since the original show, they did Crusade and they did some comics. So I don't know if there's really that much to say that there was a lot more that they've done since then. But with Babylon 5, I mean, it came out in 1993, was on multiple networks, started as syndication, then moved to TNT. It was kind of a funky situation.
TNT. Oh my goodness.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that was back in the day, and TNT was a big deal. So,
well, yeah, when you had your syndicated, but you had your basic cable, the USA, the TNTs, give me a third one. I don't know, Spike TV, all those.
Did you say TBS already?
Oh no, I missed. Who could miss TBS?
TBS, yeah.
I had my commentary on this, and I know we have friends like our buddy Larry Giver down in Indiana who loves this show, will sweat and die for it. I have a client up in Big Rapids, Michigan, a guy who works in one of the optical shops I call on, who, when I first started calling on him, he was, I turned him into a customer, wasn't a customer. But when we first started talking, he caught wind that I was a Star Trek guy. He started talking to me about Babylon 5. So Babylon 5 is on HBO Max or Max. So this was probably last summer. I came home and watched an episode with April, and we just looked at each other like, we can't watch any more of this. My God, it's just no good. And so I saw him at an optical shop or an optical show that April and I were actually both at. I think April was away from the table, so she didn't get to chime in. And he's like, man, did you ever get around to watch Babylon 5? And I was like, well, I'm glad you like it. And he's like, man, you got to skip the first season and come back for this and that, and then don't watch season 6 or whatever. And I'm just like, oh, okay, you know what? Dig what you love. But yeah, it did not speak to me. Not necessarily just visually, but the storyline just it didn't engage in the same way. But it also didn't have any of the backlog that DS9 had, which was considered its rival or the show that killed it or whatever the idea was, because it didn't have any of the background that Star Trek had. It didn't.
Can't compare Babylon 5 and Star Trek. Star Trek had a whole series of many movies before that, and a fan base already baked in. Babylon 5 was something new that people discovered out of the blue. It was on syndication. It's like, what is this thing? And when I picked it up when TNT acquired it, and I watched. They basically made a new movie to get people upset. Get set up,
get them upset,
get ready into the series. Well, maybe it did, but for me, it was the perfect entry into that show. Was watching that movie first, and if you didn't do that, Charlie, I don't think it was the right move, because starting a long running series, say I'm going to watch one episode, is it for me? And it's like, what show can you judge by one episode and say, oh, it's good or bad? You can't. I don't think there's a good example, say one episode of a show to say.
But again, some people are like, well, it's space stuff, so I can compare to like the Star Wars and Star Trek people. Oh, I'm a Star Wars person. I don't give a shit. They're not anything alike. It has the word star in it, so it drives me up the wall. Working shows, working our booth, people want to come up and say, well, I'm really a Star Wars person. Yeah, okay, move along. I don't care. Great. I love Star Wars.
Why are you here? Exactly.
I do a damn Star Wars podcast. I love Star Wars too. Doesn't have anything to do with how I feel about Star Trek. So anyway, yes. Bullet point is, if you love Babylon 5, you can keep loving it, and there's some new content coming your way, so you can be
and I hope this is something that potentially could turn people into Babylon 5 fans. Not necessarily you have to watch the old stuff, and I think that's what good science fiction can do, make people fans of things that are new. Like I found The Expanse that was brand new, not based on anything else. And I'm like, I love this because it's not something that I've seen a billion times before, and it's just the newest version of it. So I hope this does well, and I hope it's handled well, depending on the animation style. Straczynski is a good writer, and how he manages this. Is it going to be like really deep in the weeds of Babylon 5, so you kind of exclude people? Or is it going to be like a good entry point to say, here's the world of Babylon 5, maybe some things that have happened, but it's like Strange New Worlds. Good entry point. Same thing there. It's before anything before, so you don't have to get on board, which is what Star Trek does push a lot of people away, because like, I don't know where to start. A lot of it is not very good. A lot of it is good. So it depends, pick and choose. So just imagine if like Voyager or Enterprise was the first Star Trek show, Charlie.
I mean, for some people it is.
That's exactly like Babylon 5. It would be like, what was the thing? So I would say, let's see where this goes. I'm very excited because it's a series that means a lot to me, and I'm glad it's getting a second chance.
All right. Talk to me about a series that doesn't mean a lot to me. Dune. The movie that I couldn't watch because my HBO famously kept locking up. So I feel like I've seen it parts of it 1,000 times. Dune,
I thought you had seen it.
I did. I ended up watching the whole thing. But don't you remember, it was you and Kay and I did that show, and I started to watch it and it cut out. Then I had to bring it up on my iPad and I had to cast it, and like the whole thing was a mess for me. So, but anyway, obviously I'm due a rewatch because now there's a sequel coming out at Thanksgiving, if I'm not mistaken. So wrap to me.
Did you see the trailer, Charlie?
Of course I did. Yes.
Excellent. So Dune 2 is coming out. Dune 1, a lot of people were nervous about it. Was this going to be a huge mess? Was it going to actually deliver on an epic science fiction story that really was going to have some fantastic visual storytelling, and was it going to work? And all said and done, I would say it's very well received. I haven't met many people that didn't enjoy it. Like, again, talking with Sean Nye, as we talked about, he's like, he typically would have not been into the movie. He saw it. He was amazed. He was like, this is phenomenal. It's great, but it's a movie you have to see on the big screen. Seeing it on the small screen on an iPad is pointless, because part of it is getting enraptured in the world, and seeing it on a little 8-inch screen, it's like,
And I did not watch it on my iPad. I turned it on my iPad and sent it over to my TV. I did not get to see it in the theaters. That'll obviously won't be the case with this one, because now I know that it's a, big whatever it is. I will obviously watch the other film again, so that I feel a little bit more keyed in. But yeah, it's a little fuzzy to me. And then and Dune, of course, is a remake because it was a real weird.
It was a book series, and then it was a movie that by David Lynch, who was a very weird guy.
Yes,
then there's been,
and it had much like Flash Gordon had Queen, the first Dune movie had Toto, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't they do the main song? Which you know what? I love both bands. So you know what? I could get on board with that.
I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure. But yeah, it was the first film was, it was very weird visually. Kyle MacLachlan, Sting, Patrick Stewart. I mean, oh my God, Sir Patrick Stewart.
Yeah,
before he was.
Dune's a very hard thing to adapt because it's a very complex book. It's very long. So in the 80s, you didn't get a lot of great adaptations. So I think it was at the time. Visually stunning, very cool, unique looking, but kind of a hot hodgepodge of what they were trying to do, especially with David Lynch being at the helm.
Yeah.
But then there was a miniseries on like Sci-Fi, The Children of Dune, which I really liked, and that was in the early 2000s. So there's been different takes, and so. But when you got Denis Villeneuve, who is a very esteemed director, it was in good hands, at least from a perspective of he can put stuff on the screen and make it work. And I think he nailed it. And this movie, I think pissed a lot of people off. They thought it was going to be a full movie. Essentially, the first half of Dune.
It was, yes, Harry Potter 1 and 2, or whatever.
I'm glad they did it because you're not going to make a 5-hour movie. You just can't, but it's a big story to tell.
Somebody's going to try. Yeah, but yeah.
And they broke it up in a very good part, I thought, which was great because there's more to tell. You've set up the world. You've got kind of the crux of what the big challenge is. And then how is this going to be resolved in the second film? So that's what we got in this trailer. And this is coming out in, I believe, November 3rd.
Thanksgiving. Yep.
No, November 3rd.
Thanksgiving-ish. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Thanksgiving-ish, November.
Post Halloween is the best way to say it.
Hopefully it will still be performing successfully by Thanksgiving in 2 weeks later.
Absolutely. But the cool part is we are getting some new. I mean, we got the returning actors, Timothy Chalamet, Zendaya. But the cool part is we're getting some new actors, including Christopher Walken, Florence Pugh, Austin Butler as well, and. And I think this could be really amazing. Just a kind of a cool, when everything is said and done, when it's complete, I think this could be something special. So I'm excited for it. Shirley, I know you have your movie subscription, so you will be at the theater to see this.
Right. Now, are they actually going to wrap it up, or is this Dune 2 of 3? I mean, and you said it was a book series, so is it like...
It's a book series, exactly. There's many, many more stories within Dune. This is just kind of like the original book. They could do more offshoots of it, which I think would be fine, but this story should be wrapped up within this, and then you might get more adventures in the future, but this is really a full telling of that initial book.
Right. Well, I have back-to-back rumor watch for the most, what did somebody say on our Discord yesterday, the most cursed franchise in Marvel history? Well, maybe not the most cursed, but it's pretty damn cursed. So we're talking about the Fantastic Four. There have been 2 rumors and nothing official. And I did pull these from, somewhat reputable sites. I'm not going to say which, because I don't want people to at me on Twitter and say, oh, really? You think blah, blah, blah is reputable? But anyway, I thought they were reputable. But we have casting news for mommy and daddy of the Fantastic Four. That would be Reed Richards and Sue Storm, possibly Adam Driver for Reed and Margot Robbie for Sue Storm. And again, it's really tough to know when any of this might be proven or disproven because we have a writer's strike going on. But Todd, your first thoughts on these strongly worded rumors? Do you like the casting if this ends up being it?
I do. I like Adam Driver a lot. I think he can bring something to the film. We got, we obviously got in Doctor Strange the fan casting of John Krasinski, so we got that out of the way. It's fine. Yeah. He's dead. Adam Driver, I think, is I think Adam Driver is a more complex actor. He can do goofy. He can do menacing. He can do odd. And he can do, and you saw him in 65? You saw that movie 65, right?
Yeah. And that.
So that's more heroic. Yeah. That's a little bit more of a kind of a hero type role,
right?
And I'm assuming he wasn't the low point of it.
No, and he's done a couple of goofy comedies, which I am now forgetting, where he was a foil of some variety or doing something. So he's great. I enjoy him. Doesn't really make anything terrible that I can think of. And then Margot Robbie she's not America's sweetheart. She's kind of the sweetheart to the world because she's Nazi.
She's America's Barbie.
She's America's Barbie. Yeah, we're all planning on enjoying Barbie later this summer. Todd, you and I are both hoping it does well because our summer movie competition has begun as of this weekend. Guardians of the Galaxy, which we're going to talk about in a minute here, and kind of its performance so far and where it's going to land. But yeah, this is the Fantastic Four is set to be Marvel's next big tentpole in 2025, and then tying back in with an Avengers movie. So yeah, I just want it to be good, from Roger Corman's low budget clunker in 1994 up through Fox's bow of the property in 2005 with the IO and Gruffold and what's her face Jessica Alba, and then its horrible sequel a couple of years later, and then the film for which we will not speak its name, which came out in 2015. It's been a rough road for Marvel's first family, but I've always loved them. They're very deeply in my heart. The Thing is one of my favorite Marvel characters. So I have my hopes.
Well,
big hopes over here.
Yeah, Margot Robbie, I don't know. I mean, she's in a lot of things, and she's already Harley Quinn.
Yeah,
I mean, it could work because you could play two roles. So, because we know Kylo, he was Kylo Ren. She could be in the so I don't know. I mean, she is a good actress, so I don't have a problem with it. I mean, it just doesn't say like, oh yeah, I'd consider her for that role. But why not? She's a strong actress. But I did see Charlie. They did say that potentially Daveed Diggs.
Oh yeah,
seems
that's it. Yeah, it's the bottom of the page. Who was in original cast of Hamilton, and then in Blackish, and he was in something else recently. He voice acts in Star Trek Prodigy. He's he's the first officer on Janeway's ship in that show. So yeah, he's great. And again, would be changing the race of a character, which is awesome.
It's fine.
If it's compelling,
Ben's,
or if it's nothing.
Yeah, Ben's not related to a character, so it's not like you can say, because that was the thing with Michael B. Jordan. He was black, but playing Johnny Storm, Sue Storm. So they think they were adopted mixed family, which is fine too.
Right,
it's fine. I don't think it really matters. I mean, he can get beat up on Yancey Street just like any white dude could.
And again, the actor of the role of the Thing doesn't really last very long. Then it becomes some big either made up or CGI, whatever. So yeah,
you need a compelling voice. That's really all required to play Thing.
Yeah. And then no word on Johnny Storm, but hopefully.
I have a pick.
Oh, okay.
I have a pick.
I would just love him to stay away from the adopted thing that they did in the last film because it just didn't add anything for me. But yeah, roll with it. What you got?
So you saw Top Gun Maverick, and the essentially the Iceman character in that movie, Glenn Powell. He is cocky.
Yeah, Rock Boy or whatever, and he was he was in some other flying movie I just saw that Jonathan
Devotion.
Devotion. Yeah, it was great.
Devotion.
It was great.
Yeah, and then he also played myself and John's one of our favorite series. Scream Queens.
Yeah.
He played Chad Rockwell.
Yeah, there you go.
Such a great actor. He's cocky. He's a good actor. He's perfect for it. I don't know if that would stereotype him too much into being like the cocky guy, but he's amazing. And I think he would be good in the role, but I mean, pick anybody.
Exactly correct. So, well, good. Well, we won't know anything about this at all until this writer strike is completed, because how could we? Or we won't know anything about moving forward, especially now that the actors all go on strike, because there's no meetings that are going to be taking place. So, all right, moving on. There is now a release window for the season 2 of Loki, which was teased at the end of Ant-Man Quantumania. But Marvel Studios is having to mill around for the potential recasting of Jonathan Majors in light of his legal issues, which would be not a first for Marvel and Marvel Studios, but it would to me, I think, be the first under these circumstances. You know what I mean? Because we had Don Cheadle became Rhodey Rhodes in Iron Man because of reasons that had to do with Terrence Howard, who
salary,
exactly. So that's money, but this is not a money thing. And there were.
You think Don Cheadle got paid less than Terrence Howard? I'm guessing John Cheadle got paid more than Terrence Howard, because
I would think so.
Don Cheadle, come on.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I just really think that it was something else, and there's always rumors around those. But and again, these are there are rumors or allegations that are going around. To Jonathan Majors, he had a domestic dispute allegation, which I think was withdrawn, but then somebody else came forward. and it's so there's a quote here from reliable sources where Marvel says, given the allegations, Marvel and Disney are monitoring the case before making a decision. However, according to sources familiar with the situation, Marvel has already started preparations, kind of push comes to shove, about a potential recast. So you got to understand that it's a business, and PR is all about perception, and it's not at all hard to understand why they would go in this direction no matter what. So that's tough.
This isn't just like a bad tweet. This is an allegation. Yeah. His agent has left him.
Not a
when
good sign.
You have something like that. No, because that means like someone that obviously is supposed to be in your corner leaves you. That means that potentially there's some rockiness going on there. Maybe it's because he disagreed with how they wanted to handle it. Totally agree, because it's a very sticky issue. Jonathan Majors was everywhere. You said, all that Devotion movie, then on the screen in Ant-Man, and just getting all these accolades also in Creed 3. So he is in the zeitgeist. So for something to take him out of the zeitgeist, that's pretty got to be pretty serious allegations. We haven't heard anything. We don't want to, we hope this is not true. And it's just, but obviously we want to believe someone if they comes forward and says something bad happened. So it's like this point, we just need someone to tell us what's true and what's not.
Right. Exactly correct. So, so again, ongoing, but casting, recasting, and things. Thankfully, obviously, Loki season 2 has been in the bag for a bit, so we're going to get that. Oh, I kind of blew past the first thing I said. It said the window for potential debut could be, I think, September or October of this year. So. Basically Disney Plus's fall programming, probably going off the back of when Ahsoka is winding down, because they say, we only like to do one show at a time or whatever. There hasn't been a Marvel regular show on. What was the last season they had out?
It was the Guardians special.
Oh my God. Yeah. That was now going on 6 months ago. So that's a big old window. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously we've got Secret Invasion coming as well.
Right,
so
there you go.
They probably want to space these out accordingly.
Right, yeah, that comes out in June, so that makes sense. So,
is it?
Yeah.
Well, I think it was August.
Nope, because that's Ahsoka. Another Disney.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, very cool. I'm very excited then. Yay!
I know I am. So yeah, this will obviously be their fall component. Then I would have to check my crystal ball to see what the next Star Wars thing would be.
Check the old calendar. You write on all these things, Charlie.
Yeah, we actually put it in the family calendar because we wake up and we're like, oh, it's Wednesday. It's it's like Ted Lasso.
Like a physical calendar or a calendar on your phone?
It's our Google calendar, our shared calendar.
Okay, I was going to say you have a family calendar. You wake up, you pull up the calendar, put it in front of your face, and go, what is today?
That's exactly correct. Yeah, but like Ted Lasso's got 2 episodes left, and it's a Wednesday show, so we watch it on
That's
Wednesday.
True. Yeah, Schmigadoon's the same boat. I think it's got two more episodes too.
Yeah. So anyway, okay. Well, that is the end of the news. We shall bid adieu to Madam Webb. Stay there, continue gathering news, and we'll get you back next week. But it's time to get out that Fuber app, that Feeble Uber app. The Geek Easy awaits down in Nasty Town, Schmigadoon Heights. For us to talk about what we're enjoying this week. So let's go.
Talk nerdy to me. Talk nerdy to me.
We're sitting the Geek Easy, drinks are poured, and we are getting our nerd on. And Charlie, you're sticking with some classics on Apple TV Plus.
Believe, yes, we because I didn't, I was gone all of this week, so and what's nice about Ted Lasso, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, did the episodes go from 30 minutes to an hour at one point, or was it always an hour? I can't remember.
They have been on the shorter side in previous seasons.
Okay, gotcha. Because we're watching an episode, I'm like, because we're watching and really into it, but I'm like, man, it's bedtime. When is this? Oh God, there's 30 minutes left. We've been watching it for 30 minutes. But no, we blasted all the way, from being home in between going out and doing stuff this weekend. We've caught up, so we are now caught up on up to episode 8 of the current season. And am I hearing rumblings that this might be the end? I mean, is there?
Correct. As of right now, this is all that's been announced. I don't know how this ends because I don't know where this season is going. Right. Quite honestly, it's not as clear as the other seasons where I'm like, where's it going to go?
Really teeing it up, but yeah, we're caught up, and they've really hung in there with the storyline for Nate, who is the turncoat other assistant coach who went off to coach in a different football club. But I love it. Ted is, there's a part of Ted's story that touches all of us that have, dealt with rejection and pain and loss of a family member and divorce and all the, and kids that you don't get to spend time with. So that touches me, definitely. His big mustache doesn't touch me because I'm not into big mustaches, even though my dad had the most legendary one of all time. Todd, you know this, of my dad.
Oh, yes.
And he was a young man.
He was more mustache than man.
And sometimes, yes, it was too big for his face. But no, I've enjoyed Jason Sudeikis's portrayal of the character, and I hope it's not the end, but you never know. You never know, because again, you land in this fuzzy space where you don't know how popular it really is. Everybody loves it and talks about it, but
exactly,
what does that really mean? You never.
Well, the British are like that. They are like short and sweet. They're like, we're not going to sustain these things unless it's like, I don't know, Dairy Girls or something like that. Most of their shows are very quick. They do like 3 seasons. Yeah. And they do like 8 episodes each.
Right, Davis, series. No, Neighbors.
The IT Crowd.
Not Neighbors. I was thinking of, there's that other real popular soap that I used
Upstairs, Downstairs, the West Enders.
The West Enders, maybe it was. I just had a British guy who I worked with years ago said, everybody in London likes Burn, because we were talking about that movie, Love Actually, and Marley McCutcheon, who was the assistant, was on that soap, and he's like, everybody, but he said, if you're in London and you live in this part of town, you watch this soap, but if you're in London and you live in this part of town, you watch some different soap. And it's so weird.
Wow, that's divided. It's like The Young and the Restless, and as the world turns, you got to make a decision.
Or like the football clubs that you see in Ted Lasso. So anyway, yes, I am the last one to the party with Ted Lasso, but I absolutely love it. So both of the programs we talked about this week have to do with Apple Plus, which we just signed up for. We'll have it for a couple of months and drop it. But one show we were watching 2 years ago was Physical, which stars Rose Byrne, who I adore. And it's about this woman, this, bored 80s housewife in San Diego in the early 1980s, who catches wind of the aerobics craze and makes her own aerobics tape by starting up in a studio with another woman, stealing all of her routines.
You've talked about the show before.
Yeah, exactly. And then turning into her own tape. So we were watching the show, but it got really difficult to watch because the soundbar we had kept having all these errors with Apple.
Yes, so, the Roku soundbar.
Yeah, so we have a new one now, because that one was such a piece of junk, and I'm going to get rid of it. But we don't see there's still kind of connection issues here and there, but it's been a whole lot less. I don't know what it is. It's just Apple. It's just Apple and the soundbar. Do you think it's sabotage? Is it sabotage?
Yes, the Beastie Boys are behind it.
It is. No, not that kind of sabotage. But anyway, cool show. I don't know if it went beyond a second season, but we're in the middle of season 2. So anyway, cool show. Not exactly a feel-good adventure because, this woman's not great. Her home life is terrible. She's having an affair with this disgusting real estate developer. So it's just, there's a lot of stuff going on. But you know what? It's got a great 80s soundtrack and everything looks very 80s. And they have a couple friends who are swingers, and it's just, there's a lot of weird stuff going on. So it's entertainment of its own.
You've not swung me over to the show, Charlie, whatsoever.
What? Oh no, that's fair.
Yes.
And Todd, I know that period piece stuff is not your jam anyway. I know, man.
No, I mean, I like American Horror Story, where they did this season in the 80s. I love that. I thought it was great. I watch Stranger Things. I watch a lot of these shows set in different times. I'm fine with it. But that one about an aerobics instructor just doing things, it sounds like a very 80s It sounds like a plot line from Dynasty.
You wouldn't watch Mad Men, though, and everybody loves Mad Men. It's your Ted
Lasso. It wasn't about the time frame. It just seemed it seemed like these people are very miserable and unhappy. And I'm like, I don't watch miserable and unhappy people because I never saw good storylines that made them very happy. They all were unhappy. And I'm like, I don't want to watch Miserable Town for 18 seasons.
Miserable Town. That's Todd's.
Because Charlie, that show was not known for having happy people. And that's 100% true.
I think that show really, and if you've not watched Mad Men, it's on AMC, grew. I think you watch some characters grow and change. But yes, there was a lot of not great stuff.
He became like the CEO. Yeah. Don Draper. I know enough about the show. I'm like, yeah, I get it. I just don't want to see sad people and cheating and Don Draper go off and join a retreat because he's not really Don Draper. I'm like, yeah, I know about all those story beats. And I'm like,
yes, he wasn't. But you know what, everybody, here's your opportunity to add Todd at TXra at Twitter and tell him why he should watch Mad Men. Do it now. All right, that's it for me. What do you got?
Yeah, so just really quickly, Free Comic Book Day was yesterday, and typically it's come back now, tied to a big movie, which is Guardians of the Galaxy. Normally, I would have gone to my normal comic book shop. They're going to be moving, so they've had some issues with their distribution of comics. Things are delayed right now.
Is that a good thing that they're moving and moving to a nicer spot?
They're moving to a much better spot, a bigger spot. They're in a very small spot, and we've been going to them for years. It was
the exact same situation with the spot that I go to, Tardy's, which I've talked about tons of time on the show. We even had an interview. We had a phone-in interview with one of the old owners of it back on our show, back when we started years ago. But Gavin and Deanna own it now, and they're in that same small little spot. And they've since purchased another location, but it's in Allegan, Michigan, which is about 45 minutes south of here. But yeah, I tell you, if they can knock out some walls and expand their shop, I know that because it's one of those like, yeah, man, I was able to. They changed a bunch of stuff around in their shop recently, so they have new merch racks out. But they have such a little rectangular footprint to work with. It's tough, but I just real estate's a bear. So I mean, that's a tough bit.
And the shop's called Mind's Eye, and it is a wonderful shop in regards to it's clean, it's inviting, it's it's not like your comic book shop where it's overcrowded, you can't move, you can't find anything. It's not exactly a good environment, not exactly well maintained. It's like, and I think that's a big still problem with comic book shops, because yesterday I went to one comic book shop just because I didn't get to go early in the morning because it was me and my friend for lunch. I went after, and Free Comic Book Day, if you don't get there early, everything's
that's how I missed out on the Star Trek comic. I didn't get it because we went out. We actually went out car shopping because I'm getting a new car whenever one comes in, because I'm trying to buy a Honda, and man, it's not easy to find a Honda right now. So
Hondas have great resale value. Yeah, you're not finding deals on Hondas.
Yeah, so it's going to take me it's not a deal, it's inventory. I can't even find one of those. So I'm going to be waiting a couple months for that, and that's fine. Because it's not like I have a dead car. I know I need a new car because I don't want to drive mine into the ground because I drive a lot. But anyway, we went for lunch, and then we shot over to Tardy's, and I know that Star Trek comic was gone, another one as well, but it was nice to go inside and do a little shopping. I found they had 20% off everything, so I snagged a figure that was on my Amazon list. So I saved $7 or $8 on it. So I was pretty happy about that. And you support local, which is important. This even I mentioned to the employee when I was checking out, who's somebody I've known forever. I said, you know what? My dad was a small business owner. Small business is very important to me in April, because April was, father was a small business owner as well. He's a self-employed construction guy. So I love to support small business when I can. And I don't certainly get around to the comic shop very often myself because I don't collect comics anymore. I mean, Todd, we've needed a Patreon segment just to get me to read comics because it's not in my current zeitgeist. So that I'm always, it's very cyclical for me. I know I'll come back to it, but that's a tough one.
Yeah, and for me, it was more along the lines of visiting a shop, seeing what they had. I typically buy stuff for my wife and my son more so than for myself, because I know what I've got and I don't need to buy certain things unless there's something that pops up. Like I'm like, oh, I don't have a subscription service that offers that book, so I'm going to buy that book because I can't get it through Marvel Unlimited or DC Infinite or Comixology. So with that, though, like I said, I couldn't go to my normal shop. Yeah, so I was looking around to see if I could find a shop. There's a couple shops in my area that I could go to. There's a lot of shops, actually. It depends on how far I want to drive. So I went to the first comic book shop I went after we had lunch. Wow, this was not a good shop. It was exactly what I talked about. Overcrowded, not inviting. I didn't know where to look. There's just too much stuff. There's action figures. There's Pokemon cards. There's boxes of old issues. And I'm like, I don't know why they own the shop if that's how they're going to run it. Like, support small business, but support good small businesses. This one, and then when I found something, I'm like, oh, it's a Starman figure, which I would normally get a statue rather than action figure, but they don't make of this character.
You got to take what you can find, take what
his staff broke, and it was $5. I'm like, oh, that's super cheap. I'm going to buy this, so I'll support the business, buy it, go up there, and the runner of the store was just not a nice person. He was complaining the whole time about Free Comic Book Day. People come in and they just take the comic. They don't buy anything, blah, blah, blah.
Why would they acting like that? Yeah. Screw you,
dude. He was talking directly at me. I'm like, if I'm a new customer, I am never coming back. And I'm never going to come back to the shop.
I have.
I don't know how he maintains friends or business partners, because guess what? With that attitude, you're not attracting anyone new.
I had a super similar experience just very briefly going into a shop that I've never been super fond of here in the Grand Rapids area. Not going to drop any names. But he's always been the shop here in town that sold those little Eagle Moss Star Trek ships that I like so much. And that company went out of business. This guy's sitting on a shit ton of them. But unfortunately, he's pulled them all off the walls and put them in boxes, and they're scattered everywhere. I'm rummaging through these. This was about a week ago. I'm rummaging through these friggin' boxes. This kid is standing there picking his nose or something. And I'm like, you see that I'm looking for things. Why don't you approach me? He wasn't the owner. He was some young kid. But I'm like, why don't you approach me and ask me what I'm looking for? Because maybe you could make some sales, which is something that helps keeps your friggin' lights on, even though it's not your shop. You like your job, right? So, and I went up to him. I'm like, yeah, man, this company, went out of business. And so you guys got a ton of these. He's like, yeah, the owner mentioned something like that and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, do I got to draw you a picture here? Try to friggin' sell me something. Maybe I'll buy it. It was just unbelievable. It was unbelievable. I've gone back to, there used to be a different guy who worked at this shop, not the owner, who I couldn't stand. Now I have somebody new there that I don't like. So I got another reason not to go there for another 3 or 4
You're on
years.
Charlie's list. That list keeps growing, by the way. Yes,
I know.
Yes.
But again, he's got a unique product offering. If he would display it and sell it, I would probably spend some money there. But I had to dig through friggin' boxes of crap absolutely everywhere. It's just, make the tiniest amount of effort. You know what I'm saying? I don't get it. Anyway, rant over.
Yes, I think this was my part of the segment, but I think I've talked like 2 seconds, but I'll finish up.
That's okay. You did well. You did well.
So just to wrap this up, it was a really crappy experience. You couldn't find where the free comic books are, which is, if you're bringing people in, that's what they're for. You should be able to show them this is where the new comics are, and they say, hey, take one, and by all means. But hey, we had a deal on this. It's all about
for sure
running a business. And when I brought that figure up, the first thing he says, well, I guess you're getting a deal. It was blah, blah, but I just marked it down. So I'm like,
okay,
I guess thank you for giving me a deal. I'm buying it. So left quickly from that store. I went to another store that I've gone to as well. It's not that far away. And they are far more inviting. But once again, it's a shop that I think has a lot of promise. It's just too crowded. It's too dense. Right. I don't know where their focus is. Where do you find it? And then once again, couldn't find the free comic book. So I feel like this is why a lot of comic book shops close, because they are catering to people that know that just accept this versus your normal everyday shopper who comes in and is like, why would I ever come back here? I'll order from Amazon or I'll do something else.
Yeah. Give me a reason. Give me an experience. Now, all things in business are about, a lot of ways, not so much about what you're buying, but how it makes you feel. And if it makes you feel that like, this guy really doesn't want me here, why the hell would I go back? That's how I felt about that shop I was just talking about. Yeah. So,
So but, I'm really hoping my shop comes back, because they are sweet people. Very nice. Yeah. They know my name, which I don't come in very often. They say, hey, Todd. And I'm like, oh, that's very nice. It makes you feel like, cheers. They do a pull list for me. They're going to do some pull list for me, which is great. So for stuff that is normally not part of service I have. So that's exactly why I would frequent them and give them business. Yep.
Excellent.
So but actually, to get into like the media content of the show, watched a show called Mrs. Davis. It's new on Peacock. Damon Lindelof is one of the showrunners behind this, and basically trying to bring up the name of the actress. Betty Gilpin
Betty Gilpin.
She's the lead in the show, and it's a really cool show. It's got a wry sense of humor. It's science fiction based, but it's in the real world in a lot of ways. But it's about this nun named she has two different names, Betty Gilpin. But yeah, so she's a nun. She's living in this convent. She's got a very happy life. But along the way, you find out that this AI has essentially kind of taken over the world. And it's like an Alexa, and people are following it. And she is not a fan of it. And we find out later that there's a reason why she is not a fan of this AI. Speaking of which, my AI just went off.
Look what you did.
Perfect timing. She's listening.
was a plot line in one of the Terminator movies. It was Genesis, because they showed up and this kid was like, yeah, this thing Genesis is a new blah blah, and they're gonna, like, this kid dumped all this plot exposition, and he was like, tomorrow they have a big launch of so and so, and then Linda Hamilton's like, well, that's when it's gonna kill blah blah blah. The Terminator movies it's a bad example of anything, but anyway.
Yeah, it's got a great cast. I mean, she essentially, her world gets upturned by this AI, and then she essentially goes on a quest. That's all I want to say, because it is wacky. It's interesting. There are Germans, a lot of good actors and actresses. It's also got
Germans like Mr. Burns. Ooh, the Germans.
Pretty much. And it's kind of weird because it's at times it's a little wacky, which I like. But sometimes it gets you out of the mode of where you're at. But I think this is going to be a great show. Watch the first episode. It's on Peacock. It comes out weekly. And I think they did a great job. It's, and based on Damon Lindelof being involved, he has got a great track record for making really great shows. Lost. I mean, he's done Watchmen. I mean, he's done some great stuff. So
Lost, you mean most of it being good? Well, not the rest of it being lost. Yeah. No,
writer's strike. Yes.
Writer's strike. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think it's well worth a show you could check out. It's very early on. I think there might be 3 episodes. So, but jump on board. It's definitely worthwhile. I think you'd get a kick out of it, Charlie.
Get on the train. You got it.
Exactly. And then lastly, Star Wars Vision Season 2 dropped on May the 4th. I'm not going to mention anything about May the 4th. I think it's this cheesy, made-up, Disney-fied moneymaker. Yeah.
The Holocron Chronicles co-host of me is probably supposed to be like, but I'm sorry, I can't do it. And I have not seen these yet, just being back from my week-long thing and being wrapped up in Ted Lasso. So yes, tread lightly, please.
Yes. So I'm only going to talk about the first episode that I watched. It's the first one in the queue. I only watched that one so far. And I think it's a good idea to not binge these, because it's not one long story. It's every episode is different. It's a different creator studio. Yeah. This season's they're basically trying to make it more international versus the first season, which was more anime and Japanese based storytelling. This is animation from different studios with different styles. I mean, you've got the Wallace and Gromit creators will have an episode, which I'm going to watch, which is claymation and more goofy. But this one, this is called Sith, and this was really great. I even showed it to Logan as I was watching it. I'm like, you should watch this. It's amazing. The studio is called El Guiri, and they're a Spanish studio, and their artwork really reminded me of Enter the Spider-Verse. So it's animated, but with really cool artistic flair, some watercolors that they used. They did not do Enter the Spider-Verse. So they're influenced by, but they're not duplicating exactly what they're doing. And this episode was truly about a Sith apprentice who was trying to escape the Sith and just have her own life, live in solitude. And it's all about that. It's 14 minutes long. It's wonderful. And this made me wholeheartedly say, I really want Star Wars to do different type of animation styles, because this puts Clone Wars animation, their staticky kind of thing, to shame. This has so much more character, more vibrancy, more.
Here we go.
Well, no, I think anybody who looks like Clone Wars, even just from the story content, I think it's so staticky and like it has no heart in its animation style, but it's got storytelling that's different.
Remember, folks, that's at TExtra on Twitter.
I'm sorry. From an animation perspective, I can dissect the story from the style.
Yeah.
And I think Clone Wars just feels very cookie cutter and samey, where this feels dynamic and wonderful. Even the action sequences are amazing. They are amazing. Where the Clone Wars, I never feel like those action sequences are like, yeah, they're going to do that. We're going to shoot that guy. Yep. So check this out. It's really, really good. I think it's well worth it. It's 14 minutes. It's amazing. Really well done.
It's 14 minutes. You can survive it. All right. Well, with that, our time at the Geek Easy is done. Time to skip out on the bill because somebody spit in my Makers and Soda, and got to get out that Air Qantas app. It is time to get to the land down under. Tina and the mutants await, and the Thunderdome to talk about the final, maybe, Guardians of the Galaxy film. Let's go.
Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome!
Thank you, Tina. We're sitting in the Thunderdome where the mutants have been gathered for a topic or a game to be entertained. And this week, we are going in the topic of Guardians of the Galaxy 3. This is a spoiler discussion. We'll be talking about this movie, and there'll be plot points and things that happen. So you've been warned that there are spoilers. Watch the movie, come back, and enjoy. And if you don't want to watch the movie, well, just listen now. So with that,
and then you won't have to.
A little bit of the background on Guardians of the Galaxy. With Guardians of the Galaxy 3, the last movie we had was in 2017. This is in the midst of the MCU going crazy. Yep. Everybody wanted to watch every movie. They were making more and more money every year because it was all leading us to Thanos and Infinity War and Endgame. That movie opened at $146 million.
Domestic,
made a lot of money just in the opening weekend. Yep. Written and directed by James Gunn. And just to give you some other context, in July 2018, Gunn was fired by Marvel for some old tweets.
Old tweets will get you.
Oh, well, they will, and especially at the beginning of and this was when James Gunn was not part of Marvel. He was doing his own thing, and because of that, and social media still at the time, people didn't do a really good job of knowing that your old tweets and stuff can be found and can potentially be bad for you. So with that, we weren't sure what was going to happen. Were they going to make another Guardians movie? Don't know. Then essentially, with James Gunn, the way he responded in a very mature way, apologized. He then went to work on The Suicide Squad with DC. And during that time, he was focused on, hey, I want to do something different. He had discussions with Alan Horn at Disney at the time, and they mended fences, really appreciated the way James Gunn handled things. He didn't lash out. He didn't, fire Hollywood, didn't talk about cancel culture. He just accepted his bumps and moved on, as any adult should do.
Right.
He was then hired back March 2019. So that's essentially, after that point, that's when I believe production probably started. We had COVID and everything like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So 6 years later, we got Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Same thing. James Gunn has written, directed this. And this weekend, it's looking at about $114 million, where now you may say, well, that's a lot less than the last one. But I would say we're in a different landscape than we were in 2017. Marvel's been kind of on in regards to a lot of people. They feel like their movies are just not sure where they are. I think there's less audience because Disney Plus exists now. So you can wait 3 months and see it there. So with that, this movie is it's higher than I think what was expected, but obviously not setting the world on fire. So Charlie, we don't know if this is going to be the #1 movie or not, but I think all of us picked it.
Yeah, I think you picked it as #1, if I'm not mistaken, unless you change things.
Nope.
I think I have it sitting at probably 3. And John might have it at 3 or 4. That's me just.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, me just glancing over your guys' stuff after we were all locked in. So.
Okay. Well, good to know. I like that when everybody's a little bit different versus on the same sheet of music.
Right. Exactly. Oh God, what would happen if we have a tie? We're gonna have to cut Shizor in half.
Exactly. Yeah. So with Guardians of the Galaxy 3, we have a couple new characters. Chukwudi Iwuji as the High Evolutionary, who is a old school Marvel big bad. And then we have Will Poulter, who I don't remember if it was Will Poulter who came out of the egg, but we know that Adam Warlock was revealed at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, not seen since, and he's back as Adam Warlock. So those are the main two new characters in this movie. Yeah. And this movie, I would say the reviews are pretty good at this point.
Strong
on
RT in the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. So far that's kind of where we are with this movie. So we're going to talk about now our thoughts on the movies. So with that, I saw it Friday in a normal fashion. Charlie, you saw it on Friday in 3D.
Yes.
And this movie is essentially supposed to be the last Guardians of the Galaxy movie with this team.
Right.
And I think I'm glad they've put it as this team because as we saw then in the movie, we do know there is a new team.
Yeah, exactly correct. So I will admit that it happened to both April and myself. The start of this movie was kind of slow, and there was a point at which we both kind of drifted off for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. I don't know what I just didn't really feel like it found its footing early on. It was just, to me, it was kind of a weird start. We're back at Guardians HQ, which is nowhere. Now we got that from the Christmas special, and the argument could be made, oh boy, if I didn't watch Christmas special, I don't know what the hell's going on, but it wasn't really that critical. And nothing really happened in that Guardians Christmas special that was like, oh my God, well, I really couldn't follow.
Well, it was revealed that Mantis is his brother.
All right. Well, there's
so that big thing to be like, wait, the brother and sister. If you didn't watch it, so yeah. But other than that was kind of like the only major thing.
But again, I don't really feel like people haven't seen what's on Disney Plus. You know what I mean? I just don't. I feel like the diehards, the serious people, I don't feel like, oh God, they had a thing in between, and that's why it's, there's a difference of $30 million in the box office. I just don't feel like that's the case. But yeah, I felt it was kind of a slow start. This film was obviously really centered around Rocket. In his backstory told, obviously entirely through flashback, because he is mortally wounded or very gravely injured early on in the film by having a fight with Adam Warlock, Adam Warlock is the pawn of the Sovereign, who, was featured very heavily in Guardians 2. He's the thing that came out. Yeah, he's the thing that came out of the egg. Adam Warlock is kind of a cocky teen. He's all powerful, but he refers to her as mother. So he looks up to her, and she does his bidding. But she does the bidding of the High Evolutionary, who we're going to find out.
We find that he's created all these civilizations.
Right. He created the Sovereign. They drop a name of the Animen, the ANI-MAN.
From Wundagore?
From Wundagore, exactly. So you're getting more ties and
with Muba, Muba the cow that took care of Magneto's children.
It wasn't Muba. It was, but it was similar to that. It was similar.
It was a cow lady.
It was Cow Lady. She was the one who was the midwife to Magda, who was Magneto's wife, gave birth to the Vision and the Scarlet Witch back then.
So crazy.
But I digress. So that's how we find out the High Evolutionary was directly responsible for Rocket and his other little animal friends, who are obviously all acquired from Earth, in becoming these weird genetic experiments. And, Rocket was in his batch, and his little batch there was an otter who had robot arms. There was a rabbit who was getting around on spike wheels.
Lila.
And didn't have a mouth. Yeah, Lila.
Floor, Teefs.
Yeah, exactly. And your last one was a walrus. I think it was called Kevin Smith. It was the Tusk. But that was all very sad, and in the end of it, Rocket again was the wonderkin of the group that the High Evolutionary created a perfect brain within him, but was then going to kill him and do experiments on him, and then kill his friends. But Rocket manages to stage an escape just in time for the High Evolutionary to show up and kill his friends. Then Rocket flips out, he tears the High Evolutionary's face off, and he escapes in a spaceship, and that's obviously where we lead him several years. It wasn't really made clear how much time passed between this and the first Guardians, but it was 10 years, something like that. Who knows?
Yeah, because I'm assuming he and Groot had many years together. Yeah,
because they had not met and whatever. But yeah, they were basically the Han Solo and Chewbacca of the Guardians verse.
Yep.
But yeah, that's where that's kind of where we leave off. But yeah, Rocket being so gravely injured, they're on a quest to visit the place, where all this surgery took place, so they could find a cure, because there's a convenient kill switch on top of his beating heart that prevents him from being medically treated at all. So they've got to find this. Along the way, they bump into Stakar, which is Stallone's character from the last film. Michael Rosenbaum shows up, some of those other characters that you saw who are other Ravagers, and our alternate universe Gamora shows up. She's part of the Ravagers now, and she does not want to hear from Peter Quill, who's in a drunken stupor about like, oh my God, I miss Gamora. That was a little over the top for me. His long lusting for Gamora, but whatever. That was the driving part of the film, and it does help him transition into where he ends up at the end of the film. So it's an emotional arc for him. I didn't know if, based on the line we saw in the film plus how that was highlighted in the trailer, they were going to try to turn it into some kind of romance between him and Nebula. I'm really glad that didn't happen, because that would be a little bit too much loving the machine. I don't think that would really have paid off. But they're having this adventure, and through this they find their way to, they need to find the high evolutionary because the scientist who has the information stole it and put it in his little micro brain, and then he went to counter Earth.
It's Mateo from Superstore.
Exactly. I said it to April right away. I said, that's Mateo. He's looks like he put on a couple of pounds and he shaved his head, but it's totally him. So at any rate, the High Evolutionary's big home base current project is Counter Earth, which he visited the Earth in the 1970s because that's what everything looks like. But it's basically he lands in a suburban neighborhood that's just populated with animal people who don't speak a language that our people can't adapt to. And then things got a little weird from there. I mean, you got great gags like Drax, knocks out a kid with a dodgeball, and they start throwing rocks, and then the whole thing with him laying on the couch and stuff. But then Peter borrows the lady's car so that they can drive to the main fortress, and at the end of it, he blows the High Evolutionary ship takes off and he blows up the planet, so everybody dies anyway. That middle second act of the film got a little fuzzy for me. You know what I mean? It's just like, why is all this kind of happening in this way?
Yeah, I think that's part of James Gunn. He does wacky things. He's not doing like your standard movie, like, oh, plot point. He's going to take those times and those moments to be like, some really goofy, and that's an interesting choice.
The Suicide Squad was very much that way. They just had some real sideways shit, like, the whole, in the Guatemalan prison and whatever, and Starro with the big eye and all the little people.
Harley Quinn with the dating the gentleman, was it the king or the despot or whatever.
The despot prince or whatever. From there, then we get into our third act where they finally manage to resuscitate Rocket, and they realize they have to take the High Evolutionary down once and forever. I think without a doubt, this film hit its stride kind of in that third act, because you get Rocket rescuing all the animals, including the big cage of little tiny raccoons, which my wife was just flipping out over because it was just he's scooping them up, and it reminded me very much of the scene in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, where Jay and Silent Bob liberate that animal experiment laboratory and all the animals rush out with them. I'm like, oh look, now they're like Jay and Silent Bob, because they have to get all these little experimented children off of the High Evolutionary ship, which is exploding for like 20 minutes. I guess it would be like if the Death Star explosion took the amount of time it was supposed to.
Charlie, it was just like in Picard season 3 when the Borg cube is exploding, and it's like they have, like, isn't it done by now? Isn't it done by now? No, we need 3 more seconds to get the crew out.
We still got 5 minutes.
Exactly.
And it's awesome because the Guardians' headquarters is nowhere, which is this giant celestial skull, which you just figured, it's too big to calculate the size. But they also slapped rockets on the back of it so they could kind of fly it around at sublight speeds and still make it through one of the Stargates.
Gave it a gun.
Travel. And they gave it a big gun in the eyeball. So it was like a Borg skull. Really, there you go. There's your
kind of was. Yeah.
Right back to it. So in the end of it, Peter goes to sacrifice himself. I figured he was a goner. I thought, okay, this is what they're going to do. Last to him, they're going to kill him off. But Adam Warlock posts a total 180 because he's the whole reason that the film happens, because he gravely injures Rocket. But at the end of it, he redeems himself, and then he becomes a part of the squad.
Well, the whole push of Warlock was if they didn't get Rocket back to the High Evolutionary, they were just going to kill all of his people. So he's like, okay, I guess, and that's why the Sovereign's like, we got to do this, or they're, So, and then when he saw his mother die, he obviously knew that, like, what do I have to live for? And this guy's going to do it regardless. So he's a bad dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they saved him, so it was kind of like he saw a better way of life, and he was like a overconfident child. Like a Ron Burgundy. And I think that's where he kind of is still learning. He's still, tries to be like that teen who thinks he's older than he really is when he's trying to overcompensate, when he's just really a dumb teen still figuring it out. So
like all teenagers ever. Yes, correct.
Yeah. And it was interesting. And, obviously we got a ending where I think this movie what it was truly doing was setting up these characters to say, we've accomplished our journey.
Right. That was good.
To become the people we wanted to be, and not be, just more of the same, but honestly saying at times you can be friends but sometimes you grow up, you graduate college, you move on, you have different lives and journeys, and you're not going to be doing this for the rest of your life. And I like that accomplished. I mean, part of this was all about, we didn't know who was going to die because we saw many different scenes where we thought somebody was dying. Well,
somebody was yelling, or somebody was being carried, or somebody was
Star-Lord being drunk.
Yeah,
he was drunk. He was not dead. So it was a lot of these. Like, I loved how they did that and trying to be very careful with.
Yeah,
exactly. So it was kind of like, well, who's going to die? Is it going to be Rocket? Is it going to be Star-Lord? Is it going to be Drax? And we were all wrong because no one died. Everyone made it through this journey. But I think along the way, Drax, they kept on pointing out, like, Drax is dumb. And then you realize he finally was able to redeem himself and show a different side of himself, which was great. Mantis, has been kind of like the comic relief, and she kind of got to show herself in a different way where she contributed more than just, was just trying to please everyone else. And the whole Gamora thing was a journey with herself, like not knowing who she is, because it's like, I was reborn. I don't know who I is. I've got this past life. And they didn't put everything back together like Peter and her fell in love. They didn't. They went off and found separate ways. And Peter was lacking something he lacked since he was a child, where he lost his family and he never returned because he was scared to go back and face that path. So even Kraglin got his moment where he's like, he never felt like he was up to the task of being a leader. And he got his moment as well. So I think it was really great that everybody got redeemed in a really cool way, and different roles in different places, where I feel like it felt very complete, where a lot of the Marvel movies never feel complete. It always feels like, what's next?
That was my big complaint about Ant-Man, the Quantumania, and obviously the moviegoers agreed with me because it really was not successful, is that it just wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't like, well, this is the big, even the trailers set it up to be, and it was a total misnomer that Kang was trying to say, hey, Scott, I can get you back time with your daughter, or this and that, and I can manipulate time. And the movie wasn't about that at all. And it was just, oh, well, we got to accomplish A during this time frame, and so we're going to plug it in. So, but where this was exactly as you described, it was, we started at A and we blossomed into B, and C is the end of the road, and now it's gonna, like Groot growing in, many branches and going out and doing different stuff, and becoming either he's Groot that's ahead or he's Groot that's 12 feet tall, which he did both of that in this film. Lots of varieties. Yeah, that was my biggest hang up, trying to figure out Groot. And
I told Charlie he can do whatever he wants. It's Groot laws.
He does. He has.
And this isn't that Groot, Charlie. The original Groot died. This is essentially a new Groot.
But this is the same guy. But he goes from Swole Groot, who April we were watching. He was swole because he had all that. He was a guy wearing a big coat because he had all the guns and stuff. Remember? But he went from that to his fight with Adam Warlock at the beginning, where he was reduced to just the size of a head, but he could grow himself back together. I guess. Like he gathered.
Well, I mean, he puts the roots out far really as well. So he's essentially very. Yeah, because I mean, if we said Groot would just keep growing, and I mean, he'd be 300 feet tall eventually. No, he's
there's a famous comic cover from back in the 50s where he's like Godzilla.
He's the original monster Groot. Yeah,
exactly. So the Groot rules are they're kind of splayed out in this, but you also have to remember that this is over 10 years in Marvel time from when the first film took place, and you had that 5-year gap of many of them not existing because of the snap. So the Groot rules are kind of all over the place. He may have died and come back, and you don't know how long it takes him. So yeah, but it was a little convenient. He's like, now he's ahead, and now he's back together, and now he's at the end of the movie he was like 12 feet tall and all kind of like a gnarled tree. So he definitely grows and whatever he was. So it was funny. I came home and I ordered, because I'd been debating it. I put a picture on our Discord this morning. I replaced my Guardians of the Galaxy action figures. I got the current set lets you build Cosmo the Space Dog, who's a new member of the team. Where did Cosmo come from originally in the comics? I can't remember What
I don't know either. He's a character that was fairly new to me. And I'm assuming he came out of like more of the cosmic comics, maybe with Rocket or something like that.
Could be, yeah, more recent. I thought he was like he stretched back. It was Fantastic Four or something because it's a dog that was captured in time in the late '60s or whatever. A female dog, a good dog, which was the sticking point. Good dog, bad dog. But yeah, Cosmo has psychic powers and can speak through a universal translator that translates her thoughts into a Russian accent, which I just thought was absolutely adorable. So yeah, that's the
actually, Charlie, so Cosmo's not a heritage character. Cosmo came out in Nova Volume 4 number 8 in 2008, so not a really old character.
Wow, I just really feel like it was an older character. So anyway,
well, because the Guardians team came out of that time frame with Andy Land, those creators. So Andy this is a lot of their original creations. So yeah, these are fairly new creations. So with that, I mean, and we could obviously, what we'll do is we'll do the stingers and then we'll talk about kind of like, maybe some pros and cons quickly. Cause I mean, we kind of just went through kind of like the chain of events. But with that, the stingers, Charlie. So if you stuck around, so we got the mid credit sequence, which I thought was kind of cool. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where it's not showing like who's the next bad. It's just kind of like where they're going next, which is kind of cool. It establishes a new status quo. We get the new team: Rocket, Groot, who Rocket is the new leader of the team, Kraglin, Cosmo the Space Dog, Adam Warlock, and one character that nobody knows, and that is Phi Lavelle.
Really slid that in there because that's a Kree character because the Vel is that's a Kree name because I remember
she is essentially the sister of Marvel,
right? So the sister of Wendy Lawton from the Marvel the Ms. Marvel movie, who was what's her face, Annette Bening. She's Annette Bening's sister.
Yes,
there you go. Congratulations.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a weird one because it doesn't really fit with the Marvel comics at all because as you mentioned that, and then Captain Marvel, the powers. So it is one of the children you see has abilities. So they are going to be a team, which I think it's kind of cool. Like I said, they said, this Guardians team will not be together. And that's absolutely true because they are no longer the Guardians. This new team is the Guardians. Right. So they didn't lie.
And I did love the post-credit sequence, which we do see that Peter goes home to Missouri and Greg Henry, who's his grandfather from the first film, is just so happy to see him, and they have hugs. And his grandfather was obviously a widower because he has a new wife, and Peter meets her, blah, blah, blah. But they're sitting around.
His wife? I think that's a nurse, Charlie. I think that's a nurse taking care of him.
The credit said Grandma Quill.
Really?
Yeah. I know.
Not from the picture.
No, not from the picture. No, the actual rolling credits. I had the same thought, but then that caught my eye. So yes, he was remarried. But
he was only like 185 years old too.
Yeah, exactly. He's an old dude. So anyway, they're sitting around and Peter's eating his his morning Cheerios, and he was wearing a shirt that had some old timey like cartoon something or other on it, didn't it? It was like the Manchi cheese or something. It wasn't the Manchi cheese, but it was something like that.
I think so, yeah.
But Greg Henry's sitting there reading a newspaper, and he does that twice, which is hilarious because old people love newspapers. But one of the headlines on it was, Kevin Bacon kidnapped from L.A. home. But they're just sitting there, and Peter's like, yeah, well, his son's, I know I'm going to have to, mow Mrs. Johnson's yard again. Her son's 45 years old, and he's able-bodied man. He's just going to see me mowing the lawn there and be staring at me the whole time. And Greg Henry's like, don't get me started. So it's like real normal dinner table kind of grousing that people do. And then we get a post-credit line that simply says Star-Lord will return. So the character will survive, which is awesome. Yeah. But Mantis, however, left, and because she can't fly a ship, she flew into a wall and she is dead. Sorry, folks. That's the biggest spoiler of all.
No, she is the animal talker. Yeah, she's with those weird creatures. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, so we are now in a status quo. Like I said, I feel like this movie, and we talk about the good now. I feel like this movie did a good job of reminding why we love these characters, we like them. I mean, along with that is the soundtrack. We have now in the Zune era of the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. So, and you see, even at the end, I didn't really, because I don't really care for that, the Florence and the Machine. So that dancing at the end, I was kind of like, okay, fine. We got to dance to something, right? But at least it was something different. But you did see Rocket pull out the Zune, and the playlists were organized by the decade. So that's cool. That's why we got, variety of, him, singing along to Radiohead's Creep in the beginning. And you've got, you've still got a song by Heart and, a Space Hog. Which is great in the meantime.
I mean, Faith No More song, We Care a Lot. I mean, yeah, they picked a really eclectic, not just, and it was in his playlist, he had 80s, 90s, 2000s, which I thought was cool too, because it's like, it's now showing progression, probably incorporating some of the stuff from the original mixtape to modern times. I think the Zune came out in 2003. Yeah, maybe 2000. I don't know, whatever that time frame, but yeah.
So Peter gets to go back to Earth though, and they don't even make big iPods anymore, so now he's just going to get an iPhone or whatever, and that's how he's going to listen to
and have a playlist on Spotify. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, well, I don't know if you can get Spotify in deep space. I guess we'll find out. We also don't know how he got back to Earth, so he has a ship. So yeah, he's
assuming somebody got him there. Yeah, I'm sure Rock and the team dropped him off and go from there. Yeah, so
you will find out. So, this might be him getting a Disney Plus show. That might be the next thing. Who knows?
Yeah, because I mean. Yeah, Gamora and Drax are essentially are essentially managing nowhere. We got the team. Mantis is off on her own, so I don't think we are going to be. I mean, obviously, Drax has said he never wanted to wear this costume again. Totally get it. But we will probably see some of these characters again, which is perfectly fine.
They managed to, just like with Picard season 3, they managed to subvert expectations by not killing everyone or anyone in this case. So,
which was nice, which was refreshing. Yeah, because I think that would have been just like, it would have been too easy to do that. I did enjoy seeing Rocket's background. Some of those moments were a little horrific if you have small children or you are an animal lover and you're really scared. I didn't think that was too graphic. In regards to that they kind of like had it farther away, so you have to see too much.
No. But contextually, it's somewhat unpleasant. But
Nathan Fillion had a very weird cameo, which I thought was fun,
and the wife,
not as expected.
Mrs.
and the wife too.
Appeared,
and I liked how they did use like some different sci-fi like imagery, like the planet they went to or that one place they went to, it was all organic, so kind of gross but kind of cool and different, had a different feel to it, super
squishy. So cool.
I thought overall though I really enjoyed the film. I did have a couple cons. I don't know if you felt this way too, Charlie. Like the whole thing was like when he's talking to Drax, like we're not going to kill anyone, and then it kind of got like, and I totally get this, you can have a good, like, you're committed to something, but then like everything goes to hell and you're trying to protect the ones you love. And when he gets that moment, like kill them all, when Star-Lord's, I'm like, did that work? Or was I just wrong? Did it feel like off that the tone changed where we're just going to just kill everybody? Like,
and that's just not really what the character was ever like. So that was a little iffy to have, him and Groot do the, Butch and Sundance, back to back, whatever, the big shootout. Yeah, that's it. But it passed quickly enough. But I felt the Counter Earth, was really super disposable. Like, oh, here's a little, neighborhood of people, and they're all dead. And the whole, like I said, him, he borrowed the neighbor lady's car to drive over there, and then the thing with the ship, and why couldn't Gamora fly their ship? She was a Ravager, she was a space person. So it just the like I said, the second act for this to me was just kind of like but was that Gunn doing weird stuff? I guess that's his leitmotif, and I get it. But the first act maybe a little slow for me. The second act was a little wonky for me. But again, they stuck the landing. I think they nailed it. And
absolutely.
It was kind of a satisfactory journey to the end. So okay, well, let's wrap it up. And so out of 10 baby raccoons that live, because he rescued them all, what do you give it? I guess you give it a half raccoon if you have to, but that might be a little gruesome.
They're going to go like top 10 hits. Of the top 10 hits, is this a top 10?
Yeah.
I'm going to give this probably 8.5. I really enjoyed it. hit my heartstrings just right, reminded me why I love these characters, and the amazing thing, the fact that we got our Guardians of the Galaxy 3 movies with these characters before this movie happened. Nobody had ever heard of these characters except the small group of geeks who like the comics.
Amazing.
This is an amazing accomplishment. I think James Gunn does a really good balance of action and emotion. He does some quirky things which don't always hit with everybody, but man, oh man, I think this is, along with Captain America, I would say this is the best trilogy of the Marvel movies. I think Captain America did something a little different. The last one kind of didn't feel like it was a great ending for Cap because we got that elsewhere. But this one I think is the best. Like if you think about beginning, middle, and end, I think this is the best one that Marvel has nailed inclusively.
This to the beginning, middle, and end. So, well, I'll make sure that we don't end up with half of a terrible raccoon torn in half. I will also give it an 8.5. I like that. So then we give it a total of 16. So 16 raccoons walk out of this alive. So yeah, I liked it a lot, even though I felt maybe, as I said, it was a little slow to start. The middle part was a little bizarre. The sheer, emotion and powerhouse of where I thought the ending was, where everybody got a 6, like in real life, there's no fairy tale ending when, Peter and Gamora parted company without any kind of potential, like, and maybe we'll still text or we'll, message on Facebook or whatever. We'll stay in touch. It's just, what? It was a time of, just like real things in life, real relationships in your life. You have people that come in and out of your life, and some of them just go. And that's, and you've got to pick a new direction to move on from. And, Peter, even in his parting speech with his friends, like, I've been running my whole life, and now it's time for me to land, to actually stop running and find something new out of life. Same thing that happened with Mantis. I've always been in service to somebody. First it was ego, then it was all of y'all, and I just don't know who I am. So I'm going to go off and I'm going to backpack across space Europe or whatever and find myself. And she did. And that to me, eases all sins of the other movie sins that I might have found in this movie. So that's why I felt so strongly about it. So go see it. Help Todd win this summer's movie wager, since that's his top pick. See if it'll outlast Indiana Jones or Transformers or whatever the hell thing Pixar is going to do. I don't think Transformers is going to make I didn't end up picking them at all. So
it was not in my top 10. No, it was in my top 10, I think. Yeah.
Oh, and I saw a trailer for that finally, and I'm like, oh God, they've gone right back to the way it used to be. It was so I don't know if you caught the long trailer before your movie, but it was bad. It's bad. I was not impressed.
It's fine. It's Transformers, Charlie. I like. What do you expect in Shakespeare?
I liked Bumblebee, but this doesn't look like that.
I mean, it's like the Fantastic Four movies or the Fast and Furious movies. What are you expecting? It's the Fast and Furious. Yeah. It's not like the source material was like the Bible. It is what it is. It's dumb fun with robots beating stuff up. That's all it is.
The Transformers Bible. All right, folks. Well, that leads us to the end of our program. As always, thank you to our awesome Patreon supporters, giving us the support to make all the extra fun content and just overall spreading the word about the show. You can visit patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite if you'd like to look at what we have to offer and possibly lend your support. Other than that, if that's not something you want to commit to, give us a rating on the podcast streamer of your choice. 5 stars, of course, if you like us, because why would you be listening? Because that does help the show get out there and have more ability to get noticed. So this was a ton of fun. Go see Guardians. Todd, where do people find you out there?
For all things Todd, go to Toxtra at Twitter, and you can see my ramblings about the goofy things about sports, the world as it is, and video games. Other than that, though, follow Secret Friends wherever we are at Secret Friends U, our Patreon if you want to see our content, that'd be great. And then also our webpage where all the stuff we do is there at your fingertips.
Yes, indeed, the fingertips. You can find me, of course, over on Twitter at the C3. Go ahead and spell it out. My lovely wife, April, and I do run the USS Grand Petoskey, one of the biggest chapters of the International Star Trek fan club in the world. We're here in West Michigan, but we can help you find a group of like-minded Trekkers wherever you are. Visit us at the website of that name and across socials as well, and we will help you out. With that, friends, I'm going to thank you again for joining us. I'm going to tell you that sharing is caring, and to keep on trucking.
Be the hero, not the villain.
In a truck.
I am Groot.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow @SecretFriendsU on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.